We might still be in crime. We might have sex addictions. It's like, yeah, good luck getting clean and sober overnight. Like this is going to be a process, and be proud of the little wins. Even if it's just not using needles anymore.
Lost a wild bird!
Here.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Everyone is Addicted. Today's guest, Matt, has graciously come on to share his knowledge and his experience with addiction. So, hi, Matt. It's nice to meet you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey Jasmine, thanks for having me. Um,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess I'll probably go in reverse a little bit, the short version first. I'm 33 years old. I've been sober off of alcohol for 118 days now. I've been clean off of hard drugs from I guess, the last relapse. Coming up on a couple of years. And before that, I had several years of being clean. In 2017, went to a rehab program that concluded over a decade of hard drug abuse. And, I'm just in a place in my life where I'm wanting to share my journey as honestly and as transparently as possible to help others, see what it really looks like and not feel alone instead of just giving advice. Just trying to show people that, we're all kind of in this together. So
I think that is honestly the best way to go about it because you see people on here that are talking about addiction, but they're just spitting out facts, they're not really getting into the actual, experience of it coming from living it, you know what I mean? So when they're spitting out facts, yeah, that's good because we need to learn those things, I guess, I mean, I've learned some things from videos like that, but I know people connect far more when somebody's sharing their real story and their real experiences because, like you said, then they don't feel alone. They feel like there's somebody there that is going through it with them, you know what I mean? And so what was it that finally made you decide to just you were done for good this time? What do you think, anyways?
yeah, I have been developing a relationship with God. I think I sometimes I'll say he came into my life about 4 years ago, but I know really it was just me letting him in. I'm pretty non-denominational, I just believe in a higher power. And I knew pretty early on as that relationship built that because I had been through so much hard drug abuse and alcohol abuse for the better part of 15 plus years, that it being sober was going to be a part of my spiritual journey. And the more I considered that and the more I thought about it, the more conversations I had with God about my sobriety. And about a year ago, it was just clear as day. It's kind of like taking the red pill. You can't unsee it. I think once you know in your heart that this is something that you have to do to make it to that next phase in your spiritual development, then you kind of have to accept that. And for me personally, it gave me something outside of myself to commit to, over the course of those 15 years that I was using, there was so many times that I had stopped or took a break, and just as many times that I had relapsed. And I think it was because every time I wanted to quit, it was just because I wanted to quit for myself. But as soon as I got to this place in my life where I realized that, I have a duty to serve other people, and I've got a duty to follow in the footsteps of, what some people call a divine plan that I think we all have. Um, I was able to commit to something else, and something about that just made it, I think, more easy in a way, but more meaningful.
I totally understand that because I got like when we were talking, I never planned to want to like I always wanted to help people. That's just something I've always done in different ways. I did have a different holistic healing business before I did this, but one day it just hit me, and it was like I just came up with the idea of because of what I was seeing, I wanted to, you know, all of a sudden the idea came to me, let's bring some awareness. Let's, show people they're not alone and that there's humanization there. There's people that are addicts, yes, and they're homeless, but they also have loved ones. They also have past. They also have trauma. And it just came to me like the same way. It was like I felt like I finally had found a purpose that I'd been looking for my whole life. And it just kind of clicked. I mean, I had been sober already, but it was like kind of like that dry drunk kind of thing they say, like I was sober, but I wasn't like, necessarily working any sort of program or working towards any sort of goals. I was just not drinking alcohol or using hard drugs. But then like it clicked, like you said, and I just felt like this, I want to help people and this is my way of doing it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I branched out a little bit now, because I've found and talked to so many people that have different resources that now I've branched out anybody who wants resources on how to find sobriety that maybe they have never heard of and they feel like the ones they haven't offered don't stick. That's now kind of what I try to do. And I feel like even like something that you're doing, like it's your own kind of method of staying sober, by showing people every day how you're doing, how you're feeling, you know what I mean? It's like almost like keeping yourself accountable, right? But
It is. Yeah.
I also seen that you have this 100-day challenge. Now, what is that exactly?
Yeah. So, and this is going to tie right back into what you're saying, the accountability. Like, I wanted to do something with social media, in today's day and age, being able to present yourself is key with business, but I've always been somebody that wants to help others and connect with people, and through social media, that's really the best way to reach others. So, when I started considering really thinking about sobriety, I figured that I would do a 100-day sober challenge, posting at least one unedited video every day, at least 60 seconds long. And it's hands down the only reason that I've been able to make it this far. I successfully got to the end of the 100 days and wanted to do something more because, like you were saying, the dry drunk, I think is the term you used. You know,
Yeah, it's an AA term, sorry.
I'd heard it floating around. But yeah, you can get sober and that is life changing, but it's just the beginning because the reason that we get sober or we get off of drugs is so that we can then become the person that we've always wanted to be. But you don't become the person you always want to be just by getting sober or just by getting clean. What happens is you open up all of that time and that money and that mental clarity and that energy to then do the work. So I got to the end of the 100 days, wanted to track some habits, some basic kind of things, some stuff that has to do with men's health, like, no porn, no self gratification, reading, meditating, etc. And I decided to do it with some people and see if anyone wanted to join me. So we've got a group of guys right now. This first round is just guys. but we're reading 5 books, all about, building healthy habits and then about kind of spiritual, openness, emotional intelligence, that kind of thing. And, it's been a cool experience to see other people get on board, make this huge sacrifice in their comfort to better themselves. And really, I was just doing it for me. I needed to do this 100-day program and I designed it for myself. And it's a blessing that some other people have shown interest because what I've noticed is it's only day 6 and some of the things that they were hesitant about doing at first, like posting a video, they're really enjoying now. And some of the things they thought they would be really good at, they're actually struggling with. And I think it's just a testament to what you were saying about, sticking or getting into the program is no matter where you are in your life, you may not have struggled with drugs, you may not have struggled with alcohol. You're going to have some kind of program to grow and develop, whether that's personally, emotionally, spiritually, professionally. And that's what it's all about for me is I did the hard part. I got sober, but now is the real work. Now is the real life work of becoming the man I want to be.
I also think that I like that. I feel horrible saying I like that it's somewhat targeted to men because there's not a lot of men's programs. So much women empowerment or women giving them a voice and stuff like that. There's not a lot for men. So I really have always said that I think that there needs to be more programs for men. So I commend you on doing that because I feel like a lot of men struggle in their sobriety because they feel like they have to be this stoic figure that has no emotions. They can't, it's just even in when you go to meetings, like they feel like you're with women, you're not going to want to say certain things or do certain things. So I like that you targeted it towards men because, like I said, I think men need more programs, more awareness too. Like, yes, there's women empowerment, but where's the men's empowerment? I think there needs to be a little more equality in that situation, right? And that's something I've noticed as well is that men need help just as much as women, but there isn't that as much help there. So I think that's great that you've actually been able to get some guys to come on board, and I'm sure that they'll tell some people and then they'll tell some people, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't, like you said, just have to be addiction. It's anything in life that we all have our problems and struggles and don't always know how to cope or get through them. So having something to focus on or something to challenge yourself with is going to help you learn those mechanisms and maybe make those struggles not as difficult just coming from like I just had a really really hard year last year, like the hardest year of my life, and that was in sobriety. And I wasn't like, do you know what I mean? You'd think your worst years of your life would have been in active addiction. Oh no, mine was in sobriety, and the only thing that kept me sober was all of the guests on my show. They always say they want to help one person. They were helping me the whole time. Everybody was helping me. Everybody gives you some form of advice or some form of hope, and it makes you keep going. And that's what I loved so much about doing this was that they were helping me get through the hardest part of my life. If I would have started this, it would have never, I don't know how I would have gotten through all of that stuff soberly. So I definitely find that there's some divine intervention in that. And also, like you said, the spiritual aspect of it and the openness to learn is very important as well. So like I said, I just think it's so cool that it's targeted to men, because men do need way more programs because there isn't very much.
Yeah, I agree, and thank you. Men's mental health is really important to me. I talk about this on my channel. Periodically, I lost my dad to suicide when I was 17, and I also lost my stepmom, his wife, when I was 13. And that whole
That's hard.
dynamic, I saw. I not only saw how losing a loved one to suicide affects a man, in my dad, you know? But then I also saw how a man taking his own life affects a family and affects a young man growing up. And, you know, at 17, that's really where a young man needs a father to show him how to transition from childhood into adulthood. And, you know, whether it's suicide, death, or just absence, I think a lot of men don't understand what we're supposed to do. You know, we have all of these um, expectations that don't really fit in very well with living an open, fulfilling, loving life. Um, and, you know, it's been a really hard journey for me. And I've been able to get some successes under my belt as far as my sobriety and career goes, and being able to share that and help where I can, especially with young guys or any guy for that matter, is really meaningful to me, you know, because we all have men in our life that we love and we look up to, and all of the children that are born every year, they need their dads to stick around, you know, and we look up to our parents. We look up to them for inspiration on what we do in our own life. And when you don't have a strong father figure in your life, you know, I think a lot of the times it can be very difficult to have a good sense of ambition and drive for a specific direction. Um, so if we can just encourage guys to stick around, you know, try not to clock out early, that's a
Hmm.
win for me.
Well, that really hit home to me because my dad passed away from cancer 8 years ago. So I was 29 at the time. But I remember my parents split up when I was 17 and I stayed with my dad. And I was just closer with him. My mom has some mental health problems. And you're right. Like my dad, even though I'm not a man, he taught me a lot about ambition because he was an extremely hard worker. He was really frugal and good with money. He taught me so much in transitioning into adulthood that if I would have lost him sooner, I wouldn't have known. So I could only imagine what that felt like trying to navigate, especially as a man, how to navigate growing up fully. You know what I mean? Like you do need somebody like my even with my dad, and if I had anything to talk about, he would sit and listen and then give me guidance and stuff like that. So not having that must have been so difficult. I can't even imagine. And I can understand why you want to help people because that right there, somebody I feel like like you needed a mentor at that age more than anything. And you can be that for maybe somebody else, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely the hope, you know. Um, I mean, that's the best I can hope for. But like you were saying earlier about your experience, getting out there with my channel and posting these videos every day has given me a support network and given me a reason to stick to it. You know, so it's really a two-way street. Like it's a blessing if I can help somebody. Um, but the honor is really mine because I went out trying to put value into the world and I ended up just getting tenfold back, you know. And it's a crazy thing that happens, I think, when you make that leap of faith to act selflessly and just trying to give back, is sometimes you end up getting a lot more than you thought out of it.
Oh, I definitely did because of the guests that I had at the time when I was going through that stuff. They stayed in contact with me and almost would message me every day and make sure I was okay and stuff. And it was like crazy because I was not expecting that at all. I was just expecting to, make some videos with some people and try to bring some awareness. And I had these people like holding me up, being a huge support system to me. And I'm still really good friends with all of them, but it was just something I never ever expected to happen. I needed it, that's for sure, but I never expected it to happen. And you're right, it's so it's just it's interesting how things in life end up, you know. When you set out to do something good, I think life gives you something good back, right?
Yep.
And I really like your content is really so relatable to so many people because not a lot of people talk about the early days of sobriety. I mean, I know it's not your first time around, but not a lot of people talk about that either. And but yet they feel it and they feel alone in their feelings. And I just like you hit the nail on the head. Like not every day is a good day. Some days suck, right? And the honesty about that, I think it helps so many people not feel alone because it does suck, you know, and the holidays sometimes are difficult or just navigating dating is difficult and like friendships that you have to leave behind sometimes, like all of it. It's all so much within the first couple years. It's like it's overwhelming and yeah, even you're in a program, usually there's all the old timers telling you this and that, but it's different when it's coming from somebody that's going through it at the same time as you. So I really think that what you're doing is very, very helpful to people. I love it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And so what platforms do you do videos on?
Yeah, so I post under the name Imperfect Heart with a period in between, imperfect.heart on Instagram
And
and
it's Hart, right?
Hart, yeah, which is my last name, Matt Hart.
And what platform? Sorry, I cut you off.
Instagram and TikTok, that's okay.
Perfect. So people can find you at imperfect period heart Hart if they're looking to watch your videos, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And to anybody out there that really like is just starting off or is sober curious, I think watching his videos would really help you even just take that first step forward because you're so honest about it, right? That like you watch that, you're like, okay, well, some days are good, some days are bad, but at least they see the reality, you know, and it helps somebody take that step forward, I think. Um, so yeah, I would definitely anybody who's even sober curious, I would suggest watching his videos because he's very, very honest. Like, I mean, it's just funny because like I said, I keep thinking back to when I watched your videos when I first got sober, how exactly how I felt. And I read the comments and everybody is the same way. And I think you're really starting to reach people, and that's so important with what you're doing, you know? And even with that sober challenge, like it or not sober challenge, but you know, like I'll say accountability challenge.
Mhm.
That also I think helps people. So what do you think that you would like to do in the future as you go along with this?
Yeah, you know, youth youth incarceration is actually something that is really kind of near and dear to my heart. Um, I was incarcerated in juvenile hall when I was 16, and it ruined my prospects at going into the military. I always wanted to be in the military growing up, wanted to be a pilot. It was the plan. And that's actually when I started doing drugs, was when I got denied entrance to the Marines. And I got into drug trafficking, ended up getting charged with 25 years for 5 counts of distribution of a Schedule One narcotic while armed. So 5 firearm enhancements. And um, that was really the first time God came into my life, I think, because in a real nutshell, our attorneys found a technicality that happened during the raid that allowed us to not go to trial and take a really great plea bargain instead. And I had my best friend growing up since I was 4 years old, spent almost all of his 20s in prison. And I feel like in my life and my story, not just with suicide and drugs, I was supposed to be in prison for all that, you know? And for some reason, God gave me the opportunity to not only stay out of prison, but to also go through all these other difficult things. And I don't know how I'm going to get there yet, but I feel like almost on a spiritual level, a big part of my path is finding a way to work with kids that have been incarcerated or have recently been released and are being sent to shitty situations, halfway houses where they're just going to get
Yeah.
up and loaded, like coming out of prison is quite frankly, getting out of prison is designed for you to go right back into it. And we really need a lot of help in that space, especially with young kids who are at extra risk of being institutionalized. So that's kind of where I'm headed, and this path of sobriety and just being a better man, having better habits, I think is gonna help me make my way around to that.
It's interesting you say that because that's something I would like to do too, because my daughter's father is institutionalized. He has been ever since I've known him, and I met him at 16, and he's been in and out ever since I met him. And I wanted to like I come up with a bit of a program to help people when they get out of prison, but I had to figure out how to pitch that to like prisons, right? So my first step is to go through Celebrate Recovery, and you have to do so many hours of Celebrate Recovery, and then you can go into the jails and teach it. So that's where I'm working towards, so that I can go into the jails, meet some people, and possibly talk about this, because it's something that's pretty close to my heart as well, from the aspect of my family, right? And you're right, like they set them up to fail. It's so bad. And once, if you start getting incarcerated young enough, you almost feel more safe in prison than you do on the outside, at least from what I've seen, anyways, and know from my own life experiences. And I totally agree on that. And that's also like a goal of mine. So I think that's interesting that you say that, because I think and you know what? I think it's just because it's something that is really needed. It really is, because it is just such a turnaround cycle. And even people I've interviewed, that are fresh out of prison are saying like, "Oh, I can't find work. It's so hard to find work," or "My PO is so difficult. I can't see my children." Like it just, messes with their heads and their mental health, and then they just don't care anymore and either go back to using or go back to prison, right? And it's just a sad cycle. So I 100% agree with that goal. And my advice would be to do the same thing, is like go find a program that allows you to get in there. And then once you can get in there, you can kind of see if you can try mentorship or something like that, even with the youth, because I know they do have mentorship programs as well, right? And they prefer people who have experience with addiction and criminal activity, because we can speak from going through it and getting out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice. I have been exposed to Kairos, which is a Christian prison organization, and had looked into that and loved the idea of it. But truth is my religion, my spirituality is not necessarily tied to any specific religion, and I really want. I just want an opportunity or to find a way to make an opportunity to do something like that where it's maybe more focused on a general higher power, but addiction
That's
and better living. So what was the
it's
organization that you mentioned?
it's it's called Celebrate Recovery. It
Okay.
is
I've heard
it's
that.
faith-based, but it's non-denominational faith-based. So it's non-denominational faith-based. It's called Celebrate Recovery. And you don't have to be an addict to join. It's for anybody who is struggling with anything. So you could be struggling with codependency, anger, anxiety, whatever it may be. It could be addiction, literally anything that you're struggling with, you're welcome to join. And it's non-denominational, faith-based, so they do talk about God, but they don't talk about any specific religions or anything like that. But it's very spiritual oriented, opposed to maybe like AA where they still have like the agnostic aspect. It's more focused on spirituality and God, but not in a like any specific religion or anything like that, right? So I like the program. My mother-in-law, she's the one who got me into it because she goes to the jails. She runs Celebrate Recovery. Her son definitely won't go to the program. So she got me into it, but yeah, so I go with my daughter's father's mom to it, and I asked her, how do I get into the jails? And she explained to me you have to do the step study and so many hours, and you can go to the jail. So that's a little tip. And that, like you said, it's non-denominational, so you don't have to worry about like it being like, okay, Judaism or Catholicism or something like that, right? It's not anything specific. And you don't have, and it's not just addiction based. It's for anybody that's struggling. So more people are likely to join you at a meeting or something like that, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Thank you.
And yeah, they have it in the US too, because she travels around. She always tells me it's in so many countries. She's like Little Miss Celebrate Recovery, right? Because we both are old alcoholics and A wasn't our best friend, I guess you could say. But I
Yeah,
mean, whatever works, right?
I think so. And yeah, I think that's a great point is whatever works for you works for you. You know, I've got people on my channel that hit me up and say things like, "Hey, I'm curious about being sober, but I just think I can moderate." Or I've had some people hit me up and say, "Hey, I was sober for a month, but now I think I can find the balance." And a younger version of me would have been almost a little bit prodded and offended, you know, like, are you trying to tell me that like I can't do it? But what I've come to realize is, you know what's going to work for you. People sometimes say, what's the right decision? I think when we really look at ourselves, we always know what the right thing to do is. It's just a matter of having the integrity and the courage to accept it. And, I know for myself that getting clean and getting sober is going to be a lifelong thing. And I know for myself that there's some versions of programs out there that don't work for me, and that's a big part of addiction and recovery is you got to meet people where they are.
Oh, 100%. And that's one of my favorite sayings is meeting people where they are because you can't change somebody's mind. You can't make somebody get sober, but you can meet them where they are and talk to them on a real level, and maybe you can change their mind, opposed to being like, you need to go to AA. You need to go detox. Like, you know what I mean? Like yelling at them, almost shaming them.
Yeah.
And people I see what you mean, like people coming and saying certain things like that. See, I don't know if you've ever heard of naltrexone before.
Yeah.
Have you- Yeah. Yeah, see, that's exactly if people had said that to me, probably a younger version of me would have been like, well, then go try naltrexone and leave me alone. So I get
Right.
exactly what you mean, right?
Yeah. Well, and
But like,
sometimes people are trying to prod you, and I think you just have to let it go because when people are prodding, I think all they're really trying to do is they don't want to feel alone because secretly they know that they're just going to fuck it up again. And
mhm.
you can't, and I don't want to tell them that either because, that's also not helpful. But uh, yeah, that's an interesting thing I've noticed is when you get into this space of recovery, especially on the drug side, the the reality is that you will encounter some people in really dark places and really low places. And as a recovering addict, sometimes those conversations can be pretty triggering, because it reminds you like, wow, that's how bad it was at one point. Um, But bringing it back to higher power, I also think that we are given the challenges only because we are ready to overcome them, not because it's going to be easy to overcome it now, but because we're ready and we're equipped to. Um, I just think it's a beautiful thing, you know. Every difficult thing that's given to us is just an opportunity to be stronger in that area the next round.
And I also think that when we're given addiction and able to overcome it, everybody that I've talked to wants to help somebody in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's a blessing in disguise. You know what I mean? Being able to like going through it all and then overcoming it. It's a blessing in disguise because everybody wants to help somebody in their own way. And we're both examples of that. And it's just the more people that get better, the more people there are out there trying to genuinely help people. And that's why I always say there's like a little silver lining of a blessing there because everybody tries to help people in their own way. Like I even have a friend who is a pastor at a church that is for people that are addicts or criminals. So you're like basically welcome. It's just a very different church. But even like he's very into music. So if like per se he sees me post something negative, he'll send me like music, like uplifting, like not as religious as you would think. Like it'd be like rap, but about God. And it's like
Yeah.
it's just to make me feel like back to my higher power and bring me back to remind me that I can get through it and stuff. So I feel like everybody tries to help in their own little ways that they can because they know how hard it really is, right? And so that's the blessing we get out of all of the struggle, right? And we
Yeah.
also get, I think we also get the blessing of since we've been through so many struggles, we can make it through almost anything that's thrown at us, pretty much, you know? At least I know I can after what I've been through. And I'm
Well,
sure you're the
I
same
brought
way.
that up because I want to share this with anyone that's listening that is thinking about getting clean or sober or has already begun the journey and it's early on. I was 33 years old when I started this project in Perfect Heart, and now I'm 118 days sober. Um, I was at a place in my life where I didn't have almost any more flame left in me. I had been through so much and had come out of so much and then been back through so much that I really felt washed out. And like, if there was one minor catastrophe that happened, that was going to be it for me. Like, I was going to take my own life, that's just the way it is, right? Suicide is a real problem.
I
Um,
think it really, I just did a video on suicidal ideation because I tried to commit suicide after my father passed away, but there was some divine intervention there. And you're right, like, we really need to have more of these conversations. And in early sobriety, all your emotions are coming back to you. So it's just even harder than it was when you were able to numb. So, and I was newly sober when I tried to do that. So that's why I'm saying I agree with you on that because all your feelings come back and what do you do with them? You don't really know what to do with them, right?
yeah, it's definitely overwhelming. I would say the first 30 days for me personally was surprisingly easy. I think it was because it was like a honeymoon phase, and I had put so much thought into this and turning it into a social media page. Like there was a lot of immediate accountability that I was able to kind of push through the first 30, but 30 to 90 days was extremely challenging. Like way more challenging than I really thought it was going to be. But I want to make the point that after I was able to get through that first really big dip, in sobriety that I think kind of comes with everyone that really pushes through those first few months. I don't feel anymore like I can't handle a really bad situation. Like, I genuinely feel like getting sober has allowed me spiritually, mentally, energetically, I don't know what it is, but to find that drive again, like to find that ambition to do something that means something. And I don't want a crazy hard situation. I don't want another traumatic event in my life, but I definitely feel like I'm closer to my spiritual path. And because of that, whatever comes down that path, at least I'm on it now, if that makes
Like,
sense.
no, I no, that's kind of what I kept telling myself through the summer as well when I was going through my really rough time, was that there is like it's not everything doesn't happen on my time. I don't control everything. It can't rain every day. There is a path and there is a reason. I just don't see it yet, and I will eventually see it. I just have to keep having faith in my higher power, and eventually things did obviously like get better, and I just pushed through. Like I was going to college. I was doing the podcast and the TV show, and I did a case study. I was in somebody's book as a case study, and I did a documentary. So I did a lot of work things, and honestly, pushing through with using like trying to help people was the only way I could do it. And if I didn't have a way to, believe in something more than myself, I don't know what would happen to me. So I get that 100%.
Yeah. I feel like, people probably think I'm beating a dead horse sometimes, but being in a
I
position
have
like,
to.
like you or me, where we've developed a following and I'm still so small, but like I get messages every single day from people and comments every single day asking me, what's the best way to get sober? What's the best way to stay sober? And, and side note on that, getting sober is a very different thing than staying sober.
Mhm.
But the truth is, for me, and I think for a lot of people that end up in the influencing sphere, the number one most powerful thing that has helped me stay sober is making videos publicly every single day. I just know myself and my history. If I wouldn't tell anybody and I didn't have anybody waiting to hear from me, I wouldn't be here right now.
Well, it's the accountability aspect of it, right? Because you have to hold yourself accountable because that's your platform, right? So if you don't make a video, people are going to be like, "Oh, he relapsed right away." That's what they're going to think. So you have to hold yourself accountable, pretty much, right? It'd be
Yeah.
like if I made a video and I was slurring my words or something, people will be like, "Okay, she's drinking, right?"
Yep.
I will say right now, I probably look like I was smoking pot. I had a pet pass away this morning. So it's from crying. I am not stoned. So there, see exactly right there. I kind of wanted to say that I can see my eyes, and I'm like, kind of look like I was smoking weed. Wasn't smoking weed. I am on harm reduction medication called Suboxone. I know a lot of people will say you're not sober because of that, but at the same time, I'm not using fentanyl, so I'm going to say I'm sober. And that's just I don't argue with people. People can have their own opinions on it. I don't feel like it's worth the argument because everybody is different. I don't think one size fits all when it comes to this arena. So it's whatever works for you. I talked to the creator of Cali Sober, and I mean, people think it is what it's smoking pot and that drinking, and you know, that's not what it's about actually. And so it's interesting, even with that aspect of people getting his program wrong, where Cali Sober is about if you need to use mental health drugs because you have problems with mental health and you can use them appropriately, or you're using harm reduction medication and you're using it appropriately, then it's okay. So it's not complete abstinent based. It's basically the 12 steps without being completely abstinent, as long as you're not using to get high and you have to use these medications or um or harm reduction medication or mental health medication or plant medicine to help heal yourself in an appropriate manner is actually what Cali Sober is about. And I agree with that 100%, but I don't like to say I'm Cali Sober because everybody will just think, oh, you just smoke weed all day and get drunk on the weekends, which is not what it's about.
Yeah, well, it is not only is there going to be different programs that work for everybody, but I think also too, you have to count the major wins. Like I was shooting up speed and ketamine and MDMA for almost 5 years, and I made a decision to stop using needles. And eventually, there was a last time I used a needle. And that was overnight, right? You lead up to these big changes, but eventually a big change just happens overnight. One day is the last day you do something. And for me, even though I kept doing the drugs, removing that one thing out of my life, stop being an intravenous user, was a massive achievement, you know? And if anybody's going to try and dunk on you, like, oh, you're not sober or you're not this, it's like, you don't need that energy in your life because some of us are doing all sorts of things. Some of us are doing a bunch of different drugs. We're doing a bunch of stuff we don't want to be doing. We might still be in crime. We might have sex addictions. It's like, yeah, good luck getting clean and sober overnight. Like this is going to be a process and be proud of the little wins, even if it's just not using needles anymore,
Well,
or
I think not using needles is like a actually big, hard step to do from watching. I never use needles, but my ex, he'd have everybody in the house using needles around me and stuff, and I seen how difficult it was for them to like some of them to stop because is a different high, right? So stopping that and it's almost like stepping down and going to a lesser high. And so it is definitely difficult. I count that as a small win. I count that as a big win if I was you anyways.
yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, it doesn't like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. And even like I didn't start helping people or I wanted to help people, didn't really know how, and it took me a few like years, like I said, like being a dry drunk kind of in my head trying to think about how to help people. And I was starting to talk to people at the methadone clinic that were first timers and telling them like, oh, you'll be okay. Like I'm fine now. I was like this. I was scared. Don't be scared because they come in looking terrified, right? And I would come up to them, talk to them and, calm them down, try to reassure them. And that's kind of how I started thinking about helping people, but it wasn't at first, you know what I mean? At first I had to kind of figure myself out before I could do anything else. And that takes a long time in itself, depending on how much trauma you have from your past and stuff like that, right? And then that's why I think that when people try to start arguments, it's kind of like what you said is that they're deflecting their own feelings and engaging it just leads nowhere. And I know this girl, she does a podcast in this area as well. And she's from Canada and lives in a small town. And everybody knows that her whole life. And instead of ignoring what they say, she goes on Facebook and argues with them back. And I'm like, this is going to affect everything you do because you're now engaging in arguing with people when you don't need to. You don't need to justify yourself to anybody. As long as you know you're doing better, then that's all you need to know. And so that's why I love that you said that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean it's true. And I think a lot of people need to hear it, especially early on. This is your journey, and I know it's hard, but a part of getting clean and sober is cutting people out. And people that are criticizing any part about your journey, that's a hands down, clear as day sign that that person is somebody that's got to go because this path belongs to you, whatever it looks like.
Well, that's how I failed the first time at AA because I was 13 stepping with somebody and I did still smoke pot at the time to kind of keep myself off the booze. I was really, really young when I went into AA. I was only 24 and had quite a chip on my shoulder, and so I still smoked pot, I will admit. And he was like, well, if you still smoke pot, then you're not sober, and I don't want to be with you. And then I just relapsed after that, and my sponsor would pit me against all the other sponsees, so we'd have to try to fight for her attention. And oh man, it was just so much drama, and it led right back to relapse. And if people would have just left me alone, I didn't want a sponsor, and I didn't want to date somebody 10 years older than me that tried to tell me what to do. I would have been far more successful if you would have left me alone, let me smoke a little bit of pot, and not forced me to get a sponsor. I was doing fine. I was sober for 3 years and then dove headfirst back into the booze and the opiates, and I didn't get clean again for maybe like 4 or 5 years, and it was only because of my husband overdosing and having heart attacks from bad fentanyl, or else I would probably be dead either because I lit myself on fire or I overdosed myself. So yeah, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's your journey, and that's kind of, I know I'm beating the dead horse too here, but it is your journey, and I think that's the most important takeaway. And I think that's why it's so great that you shared that journey so personally and openly online, because a lot of people are afraid to do that and um, can relate to exactly how you feel, but maybe don't want to say it, or maybe just aren't ready yet, you know? So I think it's great. I think that challenge also, if anybody actually wanted to join that challenge, how could they do that?
Yeah, so on my Instagram, there's a link in my bio. It's a completely free challenge. This is something I'm doing because, like I said earlier, I just needed to do it for myself and I could use some people to do it with me. But yeah, there's a link in the bio. It's a Google form. Just asks you some questions about yourself, asks you to check off on a couple of boxes about, are you ready to commit to this and that? And it'll go into a spreadsheet that I'm keeping track of for the next program that we'll run. So this first 100-day cohort is my opportunity to work with some people that I know personally to really build this into something that is even better and even more helpful. So I've got a handful of people that have filled that out, and as soon as you do, I'll get in touch with you. We can get in a call too. That's how I got plenty of time. This is becoming my life now, so always happy to have a actual voice chat with somebody.
I I think sometimes talking to somebody in person, especially about something like that, puts your mind at ease if you're a little bit nervous to start it. So I think that's really smart to do. But um, we're starting to run out of time here, sorry. So do you have any last little words of wisdom or anything that you'd like to say before I let you go?
Um, yeah, I'll leave on this one thing here. When it comes to getting clean or getting sober or both, a lot of the times we focus on what we want, right? What we want to be clean and sober, and we don't focus enough on who we want to be, who we want to become. And with anything difficult in life, especially in this realm, if you're struggling getting started or if you're struggling with relapsing and backpedaling, ask yourself, are you focusing too much on what you want and not enough on who you really want to be? And if that's the case, think about instead of I want to be sober, think about I want to be the kind of person that can have healthy, fun, engaging relationships without alcohol and who puts time and energy into developing their creativity and their education in a healthy way. When you paint your future that way, you start really focusing on the processes and the journey and not just the outcome.
I think that's great. Thank you so much for coming on. I love that. Just reminds me so much of my own life when I was in addiction. My best friend had the life I wanted, but I was drinking and I was just more depressed because she had the life I wanted, but I just wanted it. I wasn't doing anything to get it. Now I have the like that I wanted to have kids and get married so badly, but that's what she had. And eventually, once I finally got sober, I was able to do that. But like you said, I had to take the steps to do it first. So I love that you said that. I think that can resonate with anybody, even mental health, regular person off the street, somebody who's been sober for a while, anybody. I think it really resonates. It resonates with me and makes me think. So thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it. Um, I think you are very, very selfless in the way that you share, and I think it's very important. So that's why I really wanted to talk to you. So thank you for coming on and talking to me today.
Well, it's really such a pleasure, Jasmine. It was really nice talking to you, and thank you for doing this for me and making the time.
No problem. And you have a great rest of your day. It was nice to meet you.
All right, you too, Jasmine. Take care.
Bye.
Make alcohol a smaller part of your story with Sunnyside. Sunnyside is built on neuroscience, combining habit-changing community, coaching and analytics to help you drink less or quit entirely. It is a psychology-based program that uses medication called naltrexone to help reduce cravings. Naltrexone is used to help people with cutting back on drinking or quitting altogether by stopping the rewarding feeling we get from alcohol. Sunnyside also provides a full support system for their clients. 96.7% of their clients have successfully been able to drink less. If you want a label-free way to control your drinking, try Sunnyside.